Now, from deep in the heart of Texas, LifeTalk. Here's your host, Mark Crutcher.
Welcome to LifeTalk for October 2009. I'm Mark Crutcher, and pacing in the shadows are the usual suspects, Cherie Johnson, Johnny Hunter, and Troy Newman. Of course, as always, Father Frank and Janet Morana will be joining us later with the Gospel of Life segment. But right now, it's time for Alan Ackles and LifeTalk News. Alan?
All right, thank you, Mark. Women who have abortions may run an increased risk of subsequently giving birth to premature or low-weight babies, according to a recently published Canadian study. Researchers found that women who had an abortion in the first or second trimester had a 35% increased risk of a low birth weight baby and 36% raised risk of a preterm baby in later pregnancies. The conclusions were based on evidence from 37 studies around the world carried out between 1965 and 2001. Researchers also discovered that there was a 72% increased risk for low birth weight and a 93% increased risk for prematurity in women who had undergone more than one abortion. In general, the risks increase as the number of abortions increase. Two pro-life pharmacists in Illinois won a legal victory when the 7th Judicial Circuit Court in Springfield granted a temporary injunction preventing them from being forced to disseminate abortion drugs. Pharmacists Luke Vanderbleek and Glenn Kosarogue had challenged a 2005 administrative ruling that required pharmacists to fill all prescriptions, including abortion-causing drugs, even if doing so violated their religious and moral beliefs. Well, a Lawrence, Ohio father is on trial for repeatedly raping 3 of his daughters, resulting in several abortions. 75-year-old Henry Ross was indicted after one of the victims reported the abuse. The girl testified that the sexual abuse started when she was only 13, but she felt powerless to stop it and never reported it to authorities because she feared Ross. She also says that she became pregnant twice during the period of abuse and that her father forced her to have abortions. If convicted, Ross faces life in prison. In a similar case, a New York judge has sentenced a man to 5 years in prison for having sex with an underage girl. A Rockland County jury convicted Ariste Adonis of second-degree rape for having sex with a 14-year-old girl. Adonis was caught on a police monitor tape discussing his relationship with the girl and at one point talking about having an abortion when she pretended she was pregnant. A California man who has molested several young girls, including a girl he kept as his sex slave, is now up for parole. George Joseph England, 65, was found guilty in 1977 of sexually assaulting 3 girls, but fled before he could be sentenced. He spent 29 years on the run, much of that time with a girl he had bought from her mother when the girl was 5 years old. England got her pregnant 6 to 8 times and made her get abortions. When he was finally caught, he was sentenced to the maximum of 6 years in prison based on 1977 sentencing laws. Having served half his sentence, England is now scheduled to appear at a parole hearing. Orange County District Attorney Tony Rackauckus has vowed that his office will do everything legally possible to see that England never again has access to little girls. In Germany, conservative media was censored at a United Nations Forum on Sexual and Reproductive Health and Development held in Berlin. Reports state that attendees had to fill out a lengthy questionnaire and provide detailed answers as to how their non-governmental organization supports the sexual and reproductive health and rights aspect of the International Conference on Population and Development. While journalists from pro-life organizations were denied credentials, pro-abortion journalists were personally invited and even had their flight and hotel rooms covered by the conference. When asked how the conference could justify not accrediting conservative organizations and media, Gil Greer, Forum Chair and Director General of International Planned Parenthood Federation, said that organizers only wanted media representatives who would advance issues of women's health and women's rights. Life Dynamic President Mark Crutcher cited this as yet more evidence that it is time to get the United States out of the UN and the UN out of the United States. Well, the Chicago-based Thomas More Society has filed an action with the Illinois Supreme Court to order the immediate enforcement of the state's Parental Notice of Abortion Act of 1995. The law was in legal limbo for over a decade until the United States Court of Appeals unanimously upheld the constitutionality of the act, and the Court of Appeals mandated that the Parental Notice Act became fully effective and enforceable. But rather than enforce the law, members of the Illinois State Medical Disciplinary Board issued a recommendation that the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation give physicians 90 days to comply. However, Tom Brecka, president and chief counsel of the Thomas More Society, pointed out that physicians who perform abortions in Illinois have had 14 years to get ready for the law. The lawsuit asks the Illinois Supreme Court to enter a writ of mandamus requiring that the law be enforced without further delay. A recent Rasmussen survey found that 48% of Americans believe that any government-subsidized health care plan should specifically prohibit abortion coverage, while only 13% said that such plans should cover abortions. The latest figures also show that 52% of those polled think it is too easy to get an abortion in America, and 58% said that abortion is morally wrong. And finally, in Indiana, Planned Parenthood will close several offices after losing some of its federal grant money, according to a statement by the nation's largest abortion profiteer. 5 centers located in Anderson, Franklin, Kokomo, Shelbyville, and Indianapolis will close over the next 6 months. I'm Alan Ackles for LifeTalk News. You can get daily news updates by logging on to prolifeamerica.com. Mark, there you go. Back to you.
Thanks, Alan. Well, we got a lot of stuff going on here today.
You know, I always think there won't be stuff to tell,
Oh,
but
no.
there's always stuff to tell.
This is a pro-life movement. Come on.
If people knew how much we leave out, we only put in, and you know, we divvy up these stories, and we don't even get to all of them that we have, and we eliminate about 3/4 of them. We got this deal in England. We're going to see this here in the United States. As a matter of fact, we already are seeing this here in the United States. That's one of the points of this. This girl had a baby. She was pregnant. Had her baby 21 weeks and 5 days into her pregnancy.
Almost 22 weeks.
Almost 22 weeks, 2 days short of 22 weeks.
More than halfway.
The baby's born. The doctors refused to do anything for the baby. The baby lived for 2 hours, gurgling and gasping and so forth, while this mother begged them to do something. But in England, apparently, they have a rule that hospitals go by that unless the baby is 22 weeks, they don't do anything for the baby that's born less than 22 weeks. He was 2 days short of 22 weeks by their estimation, which could be off, of course. And they said he was breathing unaided, had a strong heartbeat, was moving his arms and legs, but they refused to admit him to a unit where he could be taken care of, and he died.
Now remember, this is socialized medicine,
This is
where
what we're
they
headed
operate underneath an economic umbrella, a cap,
Right.
if you will, and they said, look, here's the rule.
Right.
A death panel, a board of bureaucrats have said, no babies resuscitated before 22 weeks.
Right.
Period, end of subject, that's the rule.
Pick and choose, and then there's
That's what
the
America's
elder.
coming to. This is the Obamacare plan.
And I even saw a graph of our health care that they're talking about doing it. And this thing is showing optimal care really is around about 20 to 30 years old. That's when you get optimal. Intervention, when you're just under 1 year old, is very low. And when you're 60, it's very low. And they call it intervention.
Right. Intervention.
And boy, I think that this is headed here.
We used to call it health care. Now they call it intervention.
Do whatever it takes to save a life.
Did you see
That's
the
what
study
it used to be.
that just came out? They said 45,000 people die every single year because they don't have health insurance.
Yeah.
No, I thought people just died because of the illnesses and broken bones and et cetera.
Health insurance companies don't do anything. They pay the bill. They do not do any medical procedure.
45,000 people die every year because of health insurance coverage.
Unbelievable. But I'm telling you, people better wake up and understand this is where we're headed right here. This is because what they've decided in England is, like you're saying, Johnny, below a certain age, they cost more than they're worth to save.
And above a certain age.
Now, this baby lived 2 hours breathing on its own, arms and legs flailing around, and had a strong heartbeat. You're not going to tell me this baby didn't have a potential for survival.
And what's going to become of her? She's going to be bitter and
She is already bitter. She's
sad.
screwed up. This poor girl has seen her baby. She sat there and begged them at the hospital to do something for her baby. They wouldn't do anything. So it's 2 days short of the time that we'll intervene.
Oh, that's horrible.
But this is where we're headed, and people don't think it. But again, anytime you bring up these horrible scenarios, death panels and all this stuff that's attached to health care, people say, oh, this is America, we'll never get to that. Go back 50 years, tell the American people exactly what's going on today. Go back 50 years and tell the American people that in 50 years, there'll be freestanding abortion clinics in this country with 800 numbers and credit card in their ads, doing the advertising they'll do abortions in the third trimester.
Right.
Tell people that, they would have locked you up, but that's where we are. So don't tell me this stuff is not coming, because it is. You even hear these pro-socialized medicine people using England and Canada as examples that we should emulate.
Right.
do they not know that those people are coming here to get taken care of?
They don't care. That's not. It's a political agenda. It has a godless Marxist agenda to it, and the results of it don't matter.
Remember, we're eco-tumors.
Right.
People are eco-tumors. We're taking up room on the planet. We're enlarging our carbon footprint. We're causing global warming. There was another article out of the Lancet magazine that said fewer people and the proliferation of birth control pills would decrease global warming.
Right.
And so we need to kind of hand out birth control pills like candy.
We're seeing more and more articles about that having doing away with children is a green thing to do.
Yeah, it's a green thing.
Green deal. Your former governor up there in Kansas is really a sweetheart of a young lady. Anyway, she claims to be Catholic, which obviously she's not, but she's a pro-abort. And
I can vouch for that.
We're talking Sebelius, I guess.
You're talking about Kathleen Sebelius, who is now, of course, in the Health and Human Services Secretary under Obama. She was a big enough moral degenerate that he picked her out. And she claims to be Catholic. Fortunately, the bishop in, I guess it was Kansas City, said she shouldn't be taking communion. So somebody asked her about it. And she says, well, it's one of the most painful things I've ever experienced in my life. I am a firm believer in the separation of church and state, and I feel that my actions as a parishioner are different than my actions as a public official. I took an oath of office, and I have taken an oath of office in this job, and I will uphold the law. I want you to think, this all sounds very reasonable, right? And the average American out there who listens to this will think, oh, that sounds reasonable. I like that she did that.
Right.
But wait a minute. If you're a Christian and you're asked to take a job that you have to choose between your faith and doing your job, shouldn't you not do that job? If she was truly a Christian, her response would have been, look, if I'm going to have to do something as governor of Kansas or as the Health and Human Services Secretary that violates my Christian principles, then I'll give up the job. Instead, she says, no, I'll give up my faith.
Right. You know, we've lost a word in our language years ago, and it's called heretic.
And that's what this woman is.
See, there's an ancient heresy that our forefathers had to deal with back in the first century called Gnosticism. And Gnosticism essentially said that your faith